back. Well, they swapped paint, and then Gordon Moody was put away by Richard Bowyer, and then tangled up with Lewis Geach after Neil Hooper was involved in that as well. But that was just a racing incident. But certainly Richard Bowyer, that one was meant. But the upshot is that Gordon was gone from this race, and all of a sudden it looked like he may not get into the top 6 for the Euro. But the race ended up being a battle at the front between Tom Adcroft and Michael Green.
And obviously with Michael Green carrying the 154 that his late brother had, what a fitting winner for the first ever running of that trophy. And I dare say there wasn't a dry eye in the house that day.
No, it was a very, very fitting win. Very fitting win. Tom Adcroft gave him a very, very good run for his money, and maybe could have had a go. But as he openly admitted, Tom, afterwards, yes, he could have had a go, but he was really struggling to stay on Michael's pace. If he had have had a go, they'd have probably both been taken out, and which is worse, really. So he was more than happy with second for all sorts of reasons. Everyone was happy with Michael being the winner, and George McMillan was third.
Yeah, so a good result all round.
And of course, it's easy to forget because the Grand National is always so separate of a normal meeting. For instance, if you go with the grade awards, they're never on the Grand National. There's an example. And people always overlook the fact the top 6 qualifiers from the Saturday night includes the Grand National. So they're out there trying to stop Gordon in the final. He had a high top 10 place in his heat. Of course, the Grand National counts, and Gordon was back out there and came through for second place, with Wes Leland Hoots taking his second win of the evening.
Sunday, and we go to the public draw, which always makes me a little bit cringeworthy because it's a public draw, but it's taking place at 10:45 when no one's there.
It is still in public, though. It could be very easy to just a driver pick their number out of a hat as they sign in.
Or it could even be better if they did it on track as they're lining up.
Just simply not the time for that.
Sadly so, but it's been done in the past.
I mean, I can see where you're coming from, but to be honest with you, yes, in the past, but not for the European. It has become quite a little feature of the Sunday morning with Paul Gerard stood on the steps of the pit office, and the drivers either stood there with their overalls dangling round their waist, or in their civvies, or looking like they've just got out of bed. I like it, but equally, I have to respect that you don't. But I think, that is it works for me, but.
It's all about razzmatazz for me. If it's a championship, it should be treated as such, and I believe that you should. If you're having the public draw, I mean, the ones don't have it in the pit office. They're on track.
They don't have a public draw though.
No, but the other championships like that. I mean, perhaps I do think that format does need tweaking. That's what I would say. Perhaps the wild cards, as I say, the six that get through, perhaps could only draw, say, from 30 to 36.
No, I don't.
That's probably what I would think of doing. But because it should be the top 20 drivers plus Johnny foreigners, and whoever qualifies from the Saturday night who isn't there. Because the confusing thing is who's in it and who isn't. And from a spectator point of view, and that's where I come from, it's a very confusing thing. Oh, is he in the top 20 or no? I can't remember. Last year, there was actually confusion.
Well, it doesn't help when half the top 20 don't even show up.
Well, last year there was confusion because Andrew Palmer drew outside pole. He was over the moon. Then he suddenly realised, actually, no, Andrew, you're not in the top 20. Richard Bowyer is.
Well, what your concern there was addressed this year. Inca Race did publish a list of who was in the top 20. They drew the deadline for booking in on Wednesday lunchtime, and there was one of the top 20, Ashley England, who lost his place in the European Championship because he didn't book in time, And then he didn't get into the top six, so he wasn't in the European Championship. Whereas if he had booked in time, they did produce a list of who was in it and who the reserves were. So
That's something that obviously I would like to. It just needs, I know, tidying up, but that's just me being a pernickety old git.
well, yeah, I mean, you and I have discussed many times you would like the European to move somewhere else. I was of that mindset about 5 years ago, but now I'm firmly in the keeping it at Northampton camp because I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And standing there on Sunday in, yes, it's not fair enough, it's not always sunny, but standing there in front of a crowd that size, with all due respect to all the other tracks and all the other promoters, and let's face it, they're the promoters that I work alongside. I don't work alongside Inca Race, but where else could it be? And my answer was nowhere. So that.
Well, there's clamorings afoot now because the Formula One have always been, it's at Northampton, it's at Northampton, I want it at Northampton, that's it. Now there is clamorings afoot saying, well, it should.
Yeah, they're much the same with Formula Ones. Okay, then Formula Ones. Where else are you going to put it?
So that is the trouble. Yeah,
You know, we, are they seriously saying it's going to work at Bellevue on a bank holiday Monday? Of course it's not. So,
indeed. Right, so let's move to the grid itself, and well, it was an interesting grid, shall we say? I mean, lots of the foreigners seem to get. I don't know what the Dutch are number one and number two is, but they certainly pulled it out.
well, not only that, this was a piece of stock car history because we had a championship with two brothers on the front row, with Wesley Den Hoots and Robert Den Hoots drawing one and two.
Not unless there's a Crimmins become a North of Scotland championship, will there ever be again?
There's, to my knowledge and many others, there's never been a major championship in Formula Twos with two brothers on the front row.
Two brothers on the grid, perhaps. Yes, there's been many occasions of that, but
But not drawing one and two, and of course overseas as well. In fact, it was an overseas. Yeah, the second row was as well with Graham Fagan and Peter Bayer. I mean, again, you call them Johnny foreigners, but they're not Darky Jim from Jamaica. These guys are back. These guys are bang on the pace. Be them from Northern Ireland or the continent, they're bang on the pace.
just to put that into context, Steve is mentioning a 1982 World Final entrant called Darky Jim. Yes, they were different times, but you'd never get away with that nowadays. No way.
No, he wouldn't. And of course, Darky Jim was Jimmy Bryan, who was from London.
Indeed. So we have a grid, and you talk us through the race.
Yes, it was. To be honest, the European weekend as a whole was a lot better in terms of action, etc., than the Skegness weekend was. There was a tangle up at the back of the grid on the first lap. Yeah, well, Robert Len Hoots led away. His brother then took over. There was an early yellow flag as Andrew Palmer, Stephen Gilbert, who had got in as a reserve because Mark Rainey from Northern Ireland didn't start, and Mark Simpson crashed. Yes, folks, Mark Simpson was there on tarmac. And the restart, Robert Len Hoots led away. Cy Haraway took over and then immediately retired. He broke his prop shaft, so that was Cy gone. Gordon Moody never really seemed to get in his stride and fell back and then fell back some more, and then it transpired that he had a puncture, and that's the reason why he never got in his stride, because it seems that he struck the slow puncher on either the first or second lap, and the tyre just went down until it eventually went flat. So that was Gordon out. Liam Bentham led a couple of laps until Kelvin Marshall, who had started well into the second half of the grid, in fact beyond the second half, had come through, moved past Liam Bentham, and then simply pulled away into the distance. And the second half, I have to admit, was very, very roundy stuff. But that's the nature of a major championship like that, with all of the big guys, all of their cars are the same speed. They get spread out round a medium-sized track, because Northampton isn't big, but neither is it small. And Kelvin Marshall, went on to win by quite some distance. George McMillan safely in second. Michael Green safely in third. Wim Peters safely in fourth. And then Dave Polly was 5th and Neil Hooper 6th.
So, yeah, you can say that's a fairly stellar finish to that one. Like I say, all I was missing was a Moody for our Scottish listeners. But, that's one of the natures of the beast. So it's nice to see that the Checkers are going to be out again. And obviously, Kelvin Wally will probably show them off with great gusto.
Yes, or Kelvin Marshall, of course, as he is now. Yes, it's easy. It's so over. But what was noted is that it was a universally popular win for Kelvin. It was well received. So good stuff.
He's much of a joker as George McMillan himself, and I can imagine some of the selfies I've seen some of the selfies that they did on the line.
Yes, there was tongues in ears and all sorts. Yes.
So yes, the Bev Green Health International Trophy up for the grabs in the final. Obviously, a straight meeting after that, wasn't it?
It was.
We interrupt this interesting chat with me and Steve about tongue selfies at the line at Northampton to give you the results of the consolation at Skegness, and this is all important because this could see the end of some dreams for this year's World Championship. The winner of that particular race at Skegness, Michael Green, won that race. He won it at a canter from Jamie Avery in 126 in the X-Bill betting car. Now, this is an interesting achievement because I did say he probably did have a bit too much to do, but it looks as though he has scored some points, and that is Colin Thompson in 726. He picks up 4 points. 297, that's Old Man Bailey in 4th. Kelvin Morley taking 2 points there. He needs 11 or more to better his score today. And then, in 6th place, Rob Spake in 218. So he's got, again, he needs to better his score by 13 or better will get him a bit higher up the grid. Sheldon Wadsworth is another driver who, last week he wasn't on the official booking list, but he's added a point onto that one. So he is looking quite safe on the grid. And for Gary Silliphant, a point there might well secure him his semi-final spot. If not, he'll certainly do the rest of it. Phil Mann also picks up a point, as does Liam Bentham. So, your 10 through to the consolation into the final, which will be coming up in the next 15 to 10 minutes. It's Michael Green, 154. Jamie Avery, 126. Colin Thompson, 726. Paul Bailey in 297. Kelvin Marshall in 101. Rob Speak in 218. Sheldon Wadsworth in 319. At 627, that is Gary Silliphant. 53, Phil Mann. And 488, Liam Bentham. Those are your 10 going through to the final. Let's return you to talking about the European Championships with myself and Steve Linfield. Will be putting those into the supercomputer and telling people what they need to get in the final to get into a semi.
And for what was supposed to be 3 heats got truncated into 2 large heats, but that went off okay. Gordon Moody first across the line in the first one, but was docked 2 places for jumping the restart, I think.
Hang on. He's saying that Gordon Moody jumped the start?
I'm not saying that. I'm just merely saying that is what the steward of the meeting decreed happened. And he was first across the line and was docked 2 places, which promoted Wim Peters to the victory. Mickey Brennan won the second heat, which was a 2-lap dash restart. The consolation was won by Sean McFerrin, who is, when he came over to the Skegness on the Thursday, believe it or not, that was only his 3rd Formula 2 stock car meeting, the young driver from Northern Ireland.
Good Lord. Like I say, he was very quick at Skeg. It's NI 47, folks.
Yeah, and he was very You're very quick at Northampton. It would have been a shame if he could have had a bit more recognition on what was his first win.